guys, it's Erica Galinas, Northwest Indiana's Golden Girl, coming to you live from Century 21 affiliated in Lowell, Indiana. Obviously, if you're watching this later tonight or sometime next week, I'm not live, but you get the idea. Wanted to talk today about real estate sales disclosures. It's definitely a non-sexy part of the real estate transaction, but it certainly can turn out to be one of the most important parts of it. Almost every transaction, almost every sale of real estate, or even some transfers of real estate, have to have the state sales disclosure form. If you've been involved with real estate, hopefully you've seen this before. It's very official. It's got a seal of the state of Indiana. And it's got all this information on here. Hard to read, small print, but absolutely necessary. Like I said, it's required for most real estate transactions in the state of Indiana. There are some that it is not required, where you think maybe it would be, and there's been some confusions even with agents in the area. So I looked up the code section. Indiana Code Section 322151B says real estate sales disclosures have to be filled out except if the property is being transferred as part of a court proceeding. So that's going to be pretty much all your foreclosure transactions. That's going to be any kind of bankruptcy, trustee transaction. Shout out to Dan, Gordon, Ken, and Stacia. Paul Chael as well, he's awesome. It also, interestingly, applies to property that has been ordered to be sold by a divorce or a property settlement. That one, it would seem like it would be something that would be included, because obviously if it's being sold as part of a divorce, one or both are moving away, that whole thing. Possibly it's because if there's any dispute in the divorce stuff, the court doesn't want to then get in a big fight about the disclosure, so those are exempt. If you're transferring property, let's say that there's co-owners, so two people on a property. If co-owner is transferring their half to the other person, they don't have to do disclosures. And then there won't be any on new construction. There's a little bit of detail here that get a little, if it, like a part of an estate and things like that. But if you're usually involved in one of those transactions, you have a lawyer already, so they'd be able to tell you. But pretty much for everything else, you need these real estate sales disclosures. That includes for sale by owner properties. So if you're either trying to sell on your own or you're buying one of those properties, make sure that the seller fills out this form. It's, I'm sure, available on a website somewhere with the state. I don't know where. It might be tricky to find, but you can always call me and I can get you a copy. But it's not an agent-specific form. They must be filled out. If you're trying to buy for sale by owner and they're giving you trouble about it, refer them to the code section that they have to fill it out. Strongly encourage you, never, ever, ever purchase the property without getting these disclosures filled out and signed, and I will tell you why in just a bit. So the form itself, it's actually pretty straightforward. It has pretty much every system in the home, and there's four lines. Is it included with the home? So obviously not all home is going to have a trash compactor. So if it's not included, you have a checkbox or a check mark by not included. If it is included, it's either defective, not defective, or don't know. And this covers all your appliances, electrical, plumbing, sewer. Second page gets a little bit more interesting. They talk about the roof, hazardous conditions, if there's kind of asbestos, lead-based paint, methamphetamine manufacturer, which is obviously important to know if you're the buyer. I'm not sure how many sellers are going to admit to it, but anyway, it's on the form. And then there's another row here on the second page that's basically yes and no questions. Some of them are kind of unusual. Is the property located within 1 mile of an airport, which is important to know, but probably doesn't come up too much. But then there's some really good ones. Has it been treated for wood-destroying insects? Do you get water in the basement? Do you pay for flood insurance? So there's a lot of good information on this form about the house that you can get right off the bat. So if you're looking at houses, either before you do a showing or particularly absolutely before you put in an offer, ask your agent to get a copy of these disclosures. Usually what we do is we just upload them onto the MLS, so it's no big deal for an agent to just print out a copy. If for some reason they don't have them on the MLS, have your agent call the listing agent and get a copy of these disclosures before you put an offer in. There might be something that freaks you out on there. There might be, a flooded basement. It might be that, the fireplace is broken or something like that. Make sure you get these, because you don't want to even just waste the time to write up an offer. You don't want to get your hopes up, everything like that. So make sure you get the disclosures before you put that offer in, if not sooner. There is, like I said, some basics. There's also some really good information that can be found out about a house if you can get the disclosures, or your agent can get the disclosures on the MLS, that you can find out before you even set foot in there. Number one, how old is the roof? And is there 1 or 2 layers of shingles on that roof? That is the huge important question. Another good one, are there any structural problems with the building? And has there ever been any water in the basement, crawl space, etc.? Sometimes what you have, I mean, a lot of the houses around here are older. Maybe there's a little seepage. Maybe it used to flood, 100 years ago, but they fixed it. So what there is right here on the second page, there's like additional comments. So you could say, basement used to flood and we had it fixed. Or sometimes what you'll see is that there's been water in the basement, but it's because the sump pump failed. We replaced the sump pump and replaced any damaged items or something like that. But these are good stuff, good questions you can have answered before you even set foot in a property. For the seller side, you should be filling this out yourself. Agents can give you, advice might even be too strong of a word, but obviously they'll explain it to you and everything like that. It is in your best interest to be 100% honest on this form. It does no good to lie about something that's going on, or err on the side of caution. If you're like, well, I'm not sure, say don't know is a perfectly valid answer. Or if you're kind of really not sure, disclose it, because here's what happens. Here's why this unsexy government form can be one of the most important documents in an entire real estate transaction. So this document says, it's all filled out. The seller says that they're telling the truth, obviously. The buyer says that we have received it. They didn't say it's okay. They didn't say they, understand it, kind of, nothing like that. They just said that they got a copy. And then at closing, the seller will sign it again and say, nothing's changed since I filled this out when we first listed. So what happens when this form becomes important is that a buyer sees these disclosures, signs off on them, goes through the transaction, has a home inspection, has an appraisal. Everything's great. They close on the property. 3 months after they move in, they're like, there's super bad evidence of a termite infestation in the basement, and they're chewing away all of the beams that nobody could see because there was a drop ceiling in place. Home inspector isn't going to take down the ceiling. Presumably a seller would know if they had a termite infestation bad enough to chew up some beams. Or you might have one where, the buyers move in 6 months later, people are having like headaches and things get weird. Turns out that the seller knew that there was a terrible mold infestation in the crawl space. They put some primer over it and now it's all grown back. So here's what happens. The buyer gets these out and they say, right here it says moisture or water problems. It says no. I think I'm going to call my attorney. And this becomes Exhibit A in some horrible lawsuit because the seller didn't tell the truth. On the other hand, to the seller's advantage, and this is why it's so important to be truthful, is that let's say you have the same situation and you disclose on here that the basement gets a bunch of water. Let's just say it. Water problems, let's see, how is it phrased? Are there moisture and or water problems in the basement crawl area, etc.? And you're like, yeah. And you put in over here, floods in the northeast corner every time you get a heavy rain. Fully disclosed, with mitigating details. Obviously, it's not 50 feet underwater every time there's a drop of rain, but that's the whole idea. So then the buyer calls you 6 months after the transaction, says there's a bunch of water in the northeast corner of the basement after we had that giant monsoon rainstorm. Why didn't you tell me? And you go, actually I told you right here it was fully disclosed. Now at this point, lawyers are going to be involved. You're not going to get, probably, I guess anything's possible, but you're probably not going to get any trouble on this form because you said the dishwasher worked and then it turns out the seal broke 2 days after they moved. Like, you can usually figure out little things like that, somehow. This comes into play during big litigation when something really bad goes wrong in a house. I know there was an agent here in the office. This has been some while ago, but basically had that exact mold situation. They found out that the crawl space was horribly infested with mold. The woman's children started having like asthma problems, and it turned into this big old mess. There's all kinds of lawyers involved now. And the most important document is this form right here. So if you're a buyer, make sure you get this form, that you read it, and you have an opportunity to ask questions about it. This counts for a for sale by owner. This counts for your brother-in-law. This counts for anybody else, because this will protect you down the road if something goes wrong. The only time you don't have to have them is these code sections that I talked about. And if you need more details, I can, email you a copy of the code section. If you are a seller, make sure you tell the truth on these forms, because there's all kinds of people that aren't necessarily going to be scared away because there's a little bit of seepage in the northeast corner, when it rains very heavily, either because they're, don't care, or because they can afford to fix it and your price is good enough to buy it. So sellers, do not lie on this form, because if you go 6 months down the road and there's some kind of horrible problem and the lawyers get involved, guess what? You're going to be nailed, because you're supposed to be telling the truth on this form. So again, not the most exciting part of a home purchase, but certainly can turn out to be one of the most important. I mean, some of these lawsuits, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 homes, that are involved in these lawsuits. So we're not talking about some Mickey Mouse little $1,000 carpeting issue. If you have any questions about it, you want any more information, you want a copy of this form, I can certainly get it for you. This goes to all my, for sale by owner people that I'm working with and stuff like that. If you're taking a look at this, I'm happy to get you a copy of it, because you do need it according to state law. Any other questions, anything else? Call me, text me, 219-765-2062. If it's easier, email me at ericag, ERICAG, at c21affiliated.com. Office located at 1040 East Commercial here in Lowell. If that's the easiest way to get a hold of me, I'm happy to do so. And let me know what you guys are curious about, whether you're thinking about buying a house, selling a house, whether it's about houses or mortgages or anything else. I really want to share that with you, because it's not as scary a process as it seems that it might be, as long as everybody knows what they need to know. So yeah, thanks a lot. Let me know what else you'd want to hear about, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.